Hi there, welcome to the latest episode of my 10-minute moan. And the topic of this 10-minute moan is more lies the SNP have told us about wind, because that's kind of what they do. Alright, and before I start, if you want to support the channel, you can become a member, or you can subscribe, that's free, or just even hit the thumbs up button when you see any videos, and that'll help reach more people. So, the Scottish Daily Express have picked up on quite a fascinating story about lies told by the SNP about wind. And the wind is a topic that the SNP seem to be talking a lot about recently. And it fascinates me because those of us who have got a brain and can remember 2014, the independence dream was sold on the basis that oil was almost liquid gold and it would give everyone in the country a fantastic future, and all we had to do was look at Norway, and a place where they pay £10 for a pint of beer, and how that was fantastic and we should be as wealthy as them. I'm completely forgetting that most of the natural resources in countries like Norway are businesses owned by the nation, not like Scotland where none of us. Anyway, back in 2014, that was what the dream was sold on. But if you ask any nationalist, and I'm talking about the proper cult ones here, right, the nutty ones, that that's not the case. We never said that we were building our dreams on oil, because oil's a bad thing now, apparently, because the SNP needed the Greens to form a government 3 years ago, and oil suddenly became asbestos to the population. So wind became the next thing that we were going to build our future on. And we heard lots of amazing claims about how abundance of wind we had, the resources were endless, and all this sort of nonsense that we were going to have free. I don't know free, but that was a suggestion that we could, the inference that we would have all this free stuff. This wind doesn't cost us anything, forgetting that it costs fortunes to build the things and maintain them. And we get them from foreign countries, and the companies that we lease the plots of land for wind farms and plots of the seabed for offshore wind goes to foreign companies, and in some instances even foreign national companies. Yeah, that's right, we sell leases for a pittance to companies that are nationally owned by foreigners, so they get the profit and they sell the electricity that's generated to us. And the other thing is, if we can't take the stuff off them and put it in the grid, or if there's not enough wind to generate any kilowatts of energy, we give them a subsidy. So what we do is, Scottish people put all their money into our government. If the wind farm isn't working, we give a subsidy to other companies out of the country, and in some instances other countries. So the money goes from your pocket to the companies, the countries abroad, which happens quite regular when there's not enough wind, or we can't get the power into the grid. So that's where we are with wind. And the Daily Express reporter David Walkers wrote a piece today, which is quite hilarious, where the headline is, "Shady SNP refused to tell MSPs about false renewable statistic until after being caught out by the media." The then Energy Secretary Neil Gray, he's one of the only two guys that's still on the cabinet from memory, only updated Holyrood's presiding officer about the huge downgrade in Scotland's offshore wind potential one day after the media reported the statistic had been buried in a report 2 months previously. The secretive Scottish Government had to be dragged kicking and screaming into telling MSPs that it had been using fake renewable statistics for years. And after admitting it was not true, it took the SNP executive months to tell the presiding officer, only doing so a day after they were caught out in the media. For years, now this will ring a bell, everybody I guarantee that watches this video will remember this, right? For years, prominent figures including Nicola Sturgeon and Angus Robertson have claimed that the country had 25% of European Union's offshore wind capacity. We've all heard that, right? They both even boasted about this in Holyrood, despite having no proof that it was ever correct, right? It gets better, believe me. The investigation by pro-union think tank These Islands in late 2022, that's 18 months ago, found that it may never have even been true, and that officials told SNP ministers this months before it was made public. But the likes of Mr. Robertson and Lorna Slater, that's the green one, that's a super woo one, right, still used it in the horrid chamber. Following this bombshell probe, the Scottish Government agreed to go away and correct the figure, which was downgraded substantially to, we hear this, 9%, right? So, this claim that we've all heard for years that we've got 25% of the available wind power in the whole of Europe was wrong. But not even slightly wrong. Not even double wrong. 9%. They were telling us it's 25%. Right? However, it buried this in an annex to a submission to the Energy Committee on September 21. Meaning, it was not known about publicly until 2 months later. Good, isn't it? Where are we? Media reports on November the 13th accused SNP ministers of attempting to bury bad news as they failed to publicly announce that the figure had been changed and was now much lower. Back in December 2022, now this is great, see if you think about the dates, December 2022, the then Energy Secretary Michael Matheson, this is the very Michael Matheson that between December 22 and January 23 was away for his holidays, remember, over Christmas and New Year period, where he managed to get £11,000 worth of roaming charges billed. So during that time, he said he committed to undertake further work to quantify Scotland's offshore wind potential. This is the 13th of November. But the report had already been put in on the 21st of September. So he knew the figures. And 2 months later, he's saying, yeah, we'll have a look at that. We'll do more work, try to quantify what our wind potential really is. But they knew, because the report had been given to them 2 months earlier. But the Scottish Daily Express can reveal that the then Energy Secretary, Neil Gray, only updated the presiding officer about the statistic in November the 14th, a day after the media reported that the figure had been buried in the report in September, a full 2 months previous. It has led to suggestions that Parliament would not have been properly informed about the new figure if the press had not picked up on it. I think if you apply common sense and logic, that's a perfectly understandable viewpoint to take. Anyway, Scottish Tory Shadow Secretary for Net Zero Energy and Transport, Douglas Lumsden, told the Scottish Daily Express the SNP were caught red-handed in trying to hide the accurate figures in relation to Scotland's true offshore energy potential. And in typical display of the SNP's attitude towards transparency, they had to be dragged kicking and screaming into revealing the truth to the presiding officer. SNP ministers knew the figure they repeatedly trotted out was inaccurate for months, but they continued to use them and mislead the public. The fact that John Swinney has been at the heart of the SNP government for the last 17 years won't fill Scots with confidence that this culture of cover-ups and secrecy will finally be a thing of the past. A Scottish Government spokeswoman said, "This is a belter. As we have already made clear, this information was shared with the Net Zero Energy Transport Committee and published on the Scottish Parliament website in September, comprehensively setting out current and future potential wind power generation in Scotland." Well, that's all well and good. So the Scottish Government spokeswoman is saying in September, we told everybody because we put it out on the website, but in November, Michael Matheson and your other man, can't remember his name just now, the one that's still in government, and I'll flick back, Neil Oliver, God forbid, no, Neil Oliver's quite a good guy, Neil Gray. So in November, they were still putting out nonsense. Right? These people are bereft of conscience. They don't care, because in 17 years they've become accustomed to saying whatever they want and doing whatever they want and spending whatever they want. And it's got to end, because it's crackers, right? But just remember, I keep talking about these cult predominantly, they quite like inhabiting X, formerly known as Twitter, and they actually just go, right? Absolute of nonsense, right? And I'll guarantee you, some of them will still be trotting out today and in the future. Yeah, but Scotland, we've got nearly a quarter of all the potential wind in Europe, so we'll make hunters for it, right? Even if we did have 25%, we wouldn't make hunters for it, for the simple reason we've pawned it. I think it's 80 to 90% of the available offshore wind leases, where we lease a bit of the ocean bed and we let other people put turbines up. That's been pawned. Been pawned for a one-off payment of £750 million. Done, bang, away, gone. Every single owner, at least one, is foreign, and some include foreign nationalised businesses owned by the people of other countries. We will see hee-haw of their profits. We will see a fraction of the turnover of these things in taxes. And because most of them are off non-domicile, is that what you call it, to the United Kingdom, you can bet your bottom dollar we'll see as close to hee-haw as possible of their fortunes. Because that's what happens, right? The other thing we're told about these things is, we're protecting jobs. We're going to lose thousands of jobs if these people have their way and we shut the oil fields. But, we're going to have this just transition. A lot of nonsense. The biggest wind farm in Scotland employs about 6 folk, maybe 7. I might have that wrong, but if I have, forgive me. I ain't the SNP. I'll not be far wrong, right? And I am telling you right now, it's a guess, right? So I'm not telling you it's gospel, but it's about 6 or 7. So, where's this just transition for employees? The other mad thing is, all the equipment for these things comes from abroad. I think Germany is one of the biggest manufacturers of the turbines that we put up. So, where's this just transition for the workers? It's garbage. There's a just transition, don't get me wrong, for the power companies, because we give them hundreds of subsidies for ditching oil and gas and going with wind, right? So they're all right. The big companies that make the hundreds of millions and billions of pounds, they're fine. See your guy that's making a decent wage offshore now, no fine, right? He'll either need to take massive pay cuts and get a job onshore of some description, or like bugger off to Africa or South America, where I know people personally are in these places who used to work in offshore oil in the North Sea, right? So where's the just transition for these people? Absolute madness. So SNP, keep telling lies. You're getting no bad at it, but you're getting caught out more often than not now, which is fantastic. So if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've not already done so, please subscribe. And unless you're these lying SNP ministers, everyone else have a great day. Cheerio, bye now.